Tropical low developing in the Coral Sea, potential cyclone formation this weekend, widespread impacts possible across Queensland and northern New South Wales. That's what we're looking at. I've examined the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, analysed the current models, and there's a fair bit to unpack here. This system deserves your attention, particularly if you are anywhere along the east coast, from Cape York down through to the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Let us start with where we are right now, because conditions across the region are already setting the stage for what is to come. Right now, across far north Queensland, it has been hot and humid all week. Cairns has been dealing with that sticky, uncomfortable weather. 35 degrees with 80% humidity. That's typical build-up season conditions, but it's been relentless. Innisfail's been copping the same. The moisture content in the atmosphere up there is massive, and that S fuel for what is developing offshore. Compare that to Brisbane, where conditions have been all over the shop. One day it's 38 degrees and sweating. The next there is a storm that dumps a fair bit of rain and then it clears. That temperature whiplash has had people crook for weeks. Flu, headaches, sinus issues. The atmosphere's been unstable, and that instability is about to become more organised. Meanwhile, down on the Gold Coast, it's been blowy and a lot cooler. That southeasterly flow has been bringing relief, but it's also been part of the steering pattern that is about to influence this tropical system. Now let us talk about what is developing in the Coral Sea, because this is where it gets interesting. There is a tropical low pressure system that has been gradually organising itself northeast of Cairns. As of the latest Bureau update at 6 p.m. Eastern, the system is sitting roughly 400 kilometres offshore. It is not a cyclone yet. It hasn't reached the required sustained wind speeds of 63 kilometres per hour, but the conditions for intensification are increasingly favourable. The sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are sitting between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius. That's well above the threshold needed for tropical cyclone development. You need 26.5 degrees minimum, and we comfortably above that. The ocean heat content is substantial, meaning there is deep warm water to tap into. Upper level winds, the winds at altitude that can either tear a system apart or allow it to strengthen, are currently light. That S critical. When you have strong wind shear, it disrupts the organisation of a tropical system. Right now we don't have that problem. The environment is conducive to development. The Madden-Julian oscillation, which influences tropical activity across our region, is in a phase that supports convection and storm development in the Coral Sea. All the ingredients are coming together. Now here is where the models come in, and this is where we need to be careful about certainty. The Access model that the Bureau Australian Community Climate and Earth System Simulator is showing this low intensifying into a Category 1 tropical cyclone by Saturday morning. It tracks the system southwest toward the North Queensland coast, making potential landfall somewhere between Cooktown and Townsville by Sunday or Monday. The European model, the ECMWF, shows a similar development pattern but with slightly less intensity. It keeps the system as a weak Category 1 and tracks it further south, potentially affecting the Whitsundays and central Queensland coast. The GFS, the Global Forecast System, is a bit more aggressive. It develops the system to Category 2 strength and brings it closer to the coast earlier, around Saturday night into Sunday morning. When you have model divergence like this, it tells you the situation is still evolving. The atmosphere hasn't made up its mind yet. What we can say with confidence is that development is likely. What we can say with absolute certainty is exactly how strong it gets, exactly where it goes, or exactly when it arrives. This is not unusual for tropical systems at this range. 3 to 4 days out, you are looking at probabilities, not certainties. But the trend is clear enough to warrant preparation. Let me give you some historical context, because some of you have asked about comparisons to past systems. Tropical Cyclone Alfred came up in the comments. Alfred formed in a similar area back in late January 2023. It was a Category 2 system that tracked parallel to the Queensland coast, close enough to bring heavy rain and strong winds, but not making direct landfall. The comparisons are reasonable. Alfred caused significant flooding across coastal catchments, knocked out power to thousands, and created dangerous surf conditions. The key difference here is the steering currents. Alfred was pushed further offshore by a high pressure system to the south. This current low has a slightly different atmospheric setup. The high is positioned further east, which means the low has more freedom to move toward the coast. Many of you remember Cyclone Yasi, February 2011, Category 5. Mission Beach took a direct hit. That was one of the most powerful cyclones to cross the Queensland coast. this system one to reach those extremes. I want to be very clear about that. Yasi was exceptional. But even a Category 1 or 2 system can cause significant problems if it hits populated areas or lingers near the coast. Cyclone Larry, March 2006, Category 5 at Innisfail, destroyed banana crops, flattened homes, cut power for weeks. Again, this isn't a Larry, but it is a reminder that even smaller systems demand respect. Right, let's break down the impacts by region because not everyone's going to see the same thing. Far North Queensland, from Cape York down through Cairns, Port Douglas and Innisfail, you are in the primary zone of concern. If this system develops and tracks toward the coast, as most models suggest, you are looking at several potential impacts. Heavy rainfall is the biggest concern. We're talking widespread falls of 150 to 300 millimetres over the weekend. Some areas, particularly if the system slows down near the coast, could see totals exceeding 400 millimetres. That is enough to cause flash flooding in urban areas, river flooding in catchments, and significant issues for anyone in low-lying areas. The ground up there is already saturated from recent rainfall. You had 113 millimetres around Mount Carbine a couple of nights ago. The Atherton tablelands have been getting regular storms. When you add another 200 to 300 mils on top of already wet soil, the water has nowhere to go. It runs off. That means flooding happens faster and more extensively. Strong winds are likely once the system intensifies. If it reaches cyclone strength, you are looking at sustained winds of 63 kilometres per hour or higher, with gusts potentially exceeding 100 kilometres per hour near the centre. That is strong enough to bring down trees, damage roofs, knock out power lines and create dangerous conditions for anyone caught outside. Dangerous surf conditions will develop along the entire North Queensland coast, swells of 3 to 5 metres, possibly higher near the system S centre. Beach erosion is likely, coastal inundation in low-lying areas during high tide. If you're on the water, this is not the weekend to be out there. Townsville and the surrounding areas, you are on the southern edge of the primary impact zone. Depending on the track, you could see anything from moderate impacts to significant impacts. Recent reports of weak microbursts and afternoon storms indicate the atmosphere is already primed. That shelf cloud a few days ago was impressive, and it shows the instability that is present. If this low tracks south of Cairns, Townsville comes into play more directly. The Whitsundays and central Queensland coast, including Mackay, your risk depends entirely on whether the system tracks further south than currently modelled. If the European model is correct and the low moves southwest along the coast, you are looking at heavy rain and strong winds from Sunday into Monday. Right now, you are not in the primary warning area, but that could change. Keep monitoring the Bureau S updates. Southeast Queensland, particularly Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, you are far enough south that direct impacts from the cyclone itself are unlikely. However, you'll still feel the effects. The moisture being drawn southward will increase your rainfall potential. The instability ahead of the system will trigger thunderstorms. You might see another round of storms with heavy rain and strong winds, similar to what Brisbane copped a few days ago with that freak storm and the shelf cloud. The biggest issue for southeast Queensland is going to be the extended period of unsettled weather. Even if the low doesn't reach you directly, the onshore flow and moisture will keep conditions wet and windy throughout the weekend and into early next week. Northern New South Wales, from Byron Bay up through to the mid-north coast, you're on the outer edge of influence. Increased rainfall is likely, particularly if the system lingers near the coast or weakens as it moves south. The ocean will be rough. If you are planning any coastal activities, reconsider. Right, let's talk about preparation because that S what matters most. If you're in far north Queensland, particularly along the coast from Cairns north, start preparing now. Don't wait until Saturday morning when the system is on top of you. Secure loose items around your property. Outdoor furniture, trampolines, tools, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. Clear gutters and drains. Make sure water can flow away from your house because you're going to get a lot of it. Stock up on essentials. Not panic buying, just sensible preparation. Make sure you have enough food, water and medications to last 3 to 4 days in case power goes out or roads become impassable. Batteries, torches, a battery-powered radio to stay updated on warnings. Charge your mobile phones and any portable chargers you have. If you're in a low-lying area prone to flooding, consider relocating to higher ground before the system arrives. Once floodwaters rise, it's too late. If it's flooded, forget it. That is not just a slogan, it's life-saving advice. 6 cars were swept away in fast-moving water during the July floods last year. Don T become a statistic. For those with livestock, make sure animals have access to high ground and shelter. Check fences and secure gates. If you've got horses or cattle in low-lying paddocks, move them now while you can. If you're in a caravan or temporary structure, relocate to solid shelter before Saturday. Caravans are not designed to withstand cyclone-force winds. Find a friend, family member, or community shelter that can accommodate you. Know your evacuation routes. If authorities issue evacuation orders, follow them. Don't try to wait it out if you are told to leave. Emergency services want to be able to reach you once conditions deteriorate. For Townsville and areas on the periphery, you are in a watch and wait situation. Prepare as if you are going to be impacted, but stay flexible based on how the forecast evolves. The Bureau will update their warnings every few hours as the system develops. Pay attention to those updates. Central Queensland and Southeast Queensland, your preparation is less about cyclone-specific measures and more about handling heavy rain and storms. Clear drains, secure outdoor items, charge devices, and avoid unnecessary travel during the worst of the weather. Now let's talk about timing, because that's what everyone wants to know. As of right now, Thursday evening, the system is still developing. Through Friday, it continues to organise and intensify. By Friday night or early Saturday morning, we're likely looking at a named tropical cyclone. The Bureau will assign a name from their list once it meets the criteria. Saturday during the day, the system tracks closer to the coast. This is when conditions deteriorate across North Queensland. Rain increases, winds strengthen, seas build. Saturday night into Sunday, this is the peak impact period for coastal areas. If the system makes landfall, it's most likely during this window. Even if it doesn't make landfall, it'll be close enough to bring significant weather. Sunday into Monday, the system either moves inland and weakens, or it tracks south along the coast, depending on steering currents. Inland areas of North Queensland see heavy rain. Coastal areas continue to deal with winds and surf. By Tuesday, the system should be weakening significantly as it either dissipates over land or moves away from the coast. However, the rainfall and instability it leaves behind can linger for several more days. This is a multi-day event. It's not going to blow through in a few hours. You need to be prepared for an extended period of severe weather. Let me address a few specific concerns that have come up. Some people are worried this will be another Gabriel. Cyclone Gabriel hit the North Island of New Zealand in February 2023. It caused catastrophic flooding and damage. This system has some similarities in terms of moisture content and potential rainfall, but it is developing in a different region with different geography. Gabriel was exceptional because of how it interacted with New Zealand-esque terrain. This system is concerning, but it's not Gabriel. There has been speculation about solar activity intensifying the weather. A coronal mass ejection can influence atmospheric conditions and potentially enhance storm systems through electromagnetic interactions. However, the primary drivers here are ocean temperatures, atmospheric moisture, and steering currents. The CME might add energy to the system, but it's not the root cause. Some people have expressed frustration with model uncertainty. Fair enough, weather forecasting isn't perfect, especially for tropical systems at this range. The models give us probabilities and scenarios, not guarantees. What matters is that all the models show development and impacts. The specifics might vary, but the overall message is consistent. Take it seriously. For those dealing with ongoing recovery from previous flooding, particularly around the areas that copped it in July last year, this is tough timing. I understand that the mental toll of repeated weather events is real, but preparation is your best defense. Check on your mates, look out for elderly neighbors, and make sure everyone in your community knows what's coming. Now, I need to talk about what happens after the immediate threat passes, because cyclones leave lasting impacts. Flooding often peaks days after the rain stops. Rivers take time to rise, particularly in large catchments. The Bureau's flood warnings will continue well after the cyclone moves on. Don't assume it is safe just because the winds have eased. Power outages can last for days or even weeks depending on the damage. Ergon Energy will prioritise critical infrastructure, but restoring power to every home takes time when you're dealing with widespread damage. Have a plan for how you will cope without electricity. Road closures are inevitable. The Waiaweka Gorge between Opotiki and Gisborne in New Zealand is already closed from previous damage. Similar situations can develop here. Major highways can become impassable. Don T attempt to drive through floodwater. It only takes 600 millimetres of flowing water to float a car. It only takes 300 millimetres to sweep you off your feet. The economic impact on agriculture will be significant. Banana crops, sugarcane, tropical fruit farms, all vulnerable to wind damage and waterlogging. Cyclone Larry destroyed 90% of Australia's banana crop in 2006. Prices spiked for months. This system might not be as severe, but there will be losses. Let me give you the bigger picture because this system sits within a broader weather pattern. The monsoon trough across northern Australia has been active for weeks. That is normal for this time of year, but it has been particularly persistent. The combination of warm ocean temperatures, moisture from the Coral Sea, and favourable upper-level winds has created an environment conducive to tropical development. The Indian Ocean dipole is currently neutral, meaning it's not strongly influencing our weather patterns. When it S positive, it tends to suppress rainfall across eastern Australia. When it S negative, it enhances it. Right now, it is not a major factor. The southern annular mode has been fluctuating. When it S in a positive phase, it tends to push weather systems further south and can influence how tropical systems interact with mid-latitude troughs. This is relevant for where this low eventually ends up. El Niño and La Niña are also in neutral territory at the moment. We are not in a strong phase of either. During La Niña years, we tend to see more tropical cyclones and heavier rainfall across eastern Australia. During El Niño years, it S drier and fewer cyclones. Neutral conditions mean we re somewhere in between, but still capable of producing significant systems. The broader point is this. This tropical low isn't an isolated event. It's part of an active monsoon season. There could be more systems developing as we move through late January and into February. Cyclone season runs from November through to April, and we right in the middle of the peak period. For those asking about long-term forecasts, the seasonal outlook from the Bureau suggests above average rainfall across northern and eastern Australia through autumn. That S consistent with what we are seeing. The ocean temperatures remain warm, the atmospheric patterns support convection, and we are likely to see continued activity. Right, let us talk about what you should be monitoring over the next few days. The Bureau of Meteorology website is your primary source. They update tropical cyclone warnings every 6 hours, more frequently if the situation demands it. Check the tropical cyclone section of their website for the latest position, intensity and forecast track. The radar images will show you where the heaviest rain is falling. The Brisbane, Cairns and Townsville radars will all be relevant depending on the system S track. Watching the radar loop gives you a real-time sense of how quickly the weather is changing. Satellite imagery shows the system S structure and organisation. When you see a well-defined circulation, that SA sign of intensification. If it starts to look ragged or elongated, it's weakening. Local emergency services will issue specific warnings for your area. The Queensland Fire and Emergency Services will coordinate evacuations and provide community updates. Follow their advice. They have access to detailed local information that goes beyond what the Bureau can provide in a broad forecast. Marine warnings from the Bureau will tell you when it's unsafe to be on the water. If you were a commercial fisher or recreational boater, those warnings are critical. The ocean will be dangerous well before the cyclone reaches the coast. Social media can be useful for real-time updates from people in affected areas, but be cautious about unverified information. Stick to official sources for warnings and guidance. If you in an area with community warning sirens, make sure you know what they sound like and what they mean. Some councils use sirens to alert residents to evacuate. Don't ignore them. Now, I want to address something that comes up every time we have severe weather. There's always a contingent of people who reckon it's all exaggerated, that the media hypes these things up to sell bread and milk, that we've had worse. Fair enough. You've lived through Cyclone Tracy, Ash Wednesday, Black Saturday, the 2011 floods. You've seen genuine catastrophic events, and by comparison, a Category 1 or 2 cyclone might seem manageable. But here's the thing. Not everyone has your experience. Not everyone has been through a cyclone before. Not everyone knows what to expect or how to prepare. The warnings aren't about panic. They're about giving people the information they need to make sensible decisions. Yes, the models might overestimate the intensity. Yes, the track might shift. Yes, it might weaken before it reaches land. But if you wait until the system is on top of you to start preparing, it's too late. The supermarkets are stripped bare. The hardware stores have no tarps or sandbags. The roads are congested with people trying to evacuate. Preparation when nothing happens is better than no preparation when something does happen. She'll be right works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, the consequences can be devastating. So respect the warnings, take them seriously, prepare sensibly, and if it turns out to be less severe than forecast, you've lost nothing except a bit of time. If it turns out to be as severe or worse, you've potentially saved your life, your family, and your property. Let me also address the frustration some people feel about the summer weather. There have been comments about this not feeling like summer, about wanting sunshine instead of storms, about the season being a tropical mess. I understand that. Summer in Australia is supposed to be hot, dry, beach weather, but the reality is our climate is variable. Some summers are dominated by high pressure systems and endless sun. Other summers are dominated by troughs, lows and instability. This summer has been the latter, and that's not abnormal. It is just different from what we prefer. The monsoon is active, the oceans are warm, and the atmosphere is energetic. That produces storms, rain and humidity. It's uncomfortable, it's disruptive, but it is within the range of natural variability. Climate change is shifting the baseline. We're seeing warmer ocean temperatures, more moisture in the atmosphere, and changes to circulation patterns. That doesn't mean every weather event is caused by climate change, but it does mean the environment in which these events develop is different from what it was 30 or 40 years ago. The systems we get now have access to more energy. That can mean more intensity, more rainfall, and slower movement as they interact with changing atmospheric patterns. I'm not here to debate climate science. I am here to explain what is happening right now and what you need to do about it. But it is worth acknowledging that the weather we experience today is influenced by both natural variability and long-term changes to the climate system. All right, let's bring this together because we've covered a lot of ground. Tropical low developing in the Coral Sea, likely intensification to cyclone strength by Saturday. Potential landfall or close approach to the North Queensland coast from Saturday night through Monday. Heavy rain, strong winds, dangerous surf, significant flooding possible, multi-day event requiring preparation and vigilance. If you're in far North Queensland, prepare now, secure your property, stock essentials, know your evacuation routes and monitor bureau warnings. If you are in Townsville or Central Queensland, stay alert and prepare for possible impacts depending on the track. If you are in Southeast Queensland or Northern New South Wales, expect unsettled weather, heavy rain and storms, but not cyclone force winds. This is a serious system, but it's not unprecedented. You've dealt with cyclones before. Many of you have lived through far worse. Use that experience. Apply what you know. Look after your mates. Check on vulnerable people in your community and make sensible decisions based on the information available. The Bureau will continue updating their forecast every few hours. I'll be monitoring the situation and providing updates as new information comes in. This is a dynamic situation. The models will shift. The intensity might change. The track could vary. What one key change is the need for preparation and vigilance. Stay safe. Take this seriously. And remember, it's better to be prepared for something that doesn't happen than unprepared for something that does. Look after yourselves. Look after each other.